Projector activate! Deactivating projector.
Wow. You just brought everyone, huh? We should finish this now.
Sharper still. Levels increasing.
Spend a few years in the mist. You meet the most fascinating people.
Hurts, doesn't it?
Protected.
Sharp head, sharp mind.
I need more. Please! I can't lose again.
Ha! Extra damage.
Returning to normal parameters. Another.
History is mine.
Hologram projector engaged.
Your seams are showing.
Never give up. This is my wrath. The end is here.
Just a matter of getting practiced at the mechanics. I got faith in this group. Got a couple pick up. Not everybody's part of a guild here, but there's a few guildies here, which is cool. For life. That's the guild leader there, Brickwall. We're working out the roles, healing and who's doing what, and then getting the DPS up. My DPS was a little low, but I was kind of getting into the into the mix of it all here. My DPS was definitely low there. I should have at least been up near Dr. Rat. I'm new to this whole DPS monitoring, honestly. I mean, I just got this mouse thing, which is pretty cool, the target, and I'm getting used to like doing things a little bit differently. I've been playing for 9 years, and at the beginning and over time, I just have had weird bad habits, and like fixing myself for those bad habits to get a better experience is kind of how the gem store works too, and getting items for like, you know, the trade, you know, the extra gem, you know, bank storage and shared slides is kind of like, it's everybody plays Guild Wars 2 a little bit differently because that's how it sets you up, and at the same time there's certain ways to balance it out with others and get an experience where everybody works together and makes something from it. So we spread the heals out a bit here is kind of what we were looking at, and hopefully we got some more quickness going. I can be able to activate quickness with my overclock signet. I just need to make sure to hit that, so I'm just like getting my hands and fingers warmed up for this.
Here we go. Protected. Glorious combination. Spend a few years in the mist. You meet the most fascinating people. Did you?
blood of the earth.
See, I have that teleport, and I could have used it right then, and why I didn't use it is just because I'm not used to having teleport with an engineer. And that's awful, but that's just the way I gotta just remember I got teleport. Let me get the unified chat box up. I didn't have it up, so I can see the chat live for Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Which I don't know how long I'll be doing this like this, because I mean there's just a lot of tangling with the same premise, and I really like simple, and sometimes doing too much not simple, but I don't like getting caged into one system or another if they're constantly trying to take advantage of that in their own ways. And so I'm just trying to find a balanced middle point. They provide a service, I'm willing to use the software and promote, but at the same time, you know, I'm looking at a grassroots solution bias for us. Power there. Let's see what they do. Fluffy's a hollow smith doing 3 million. That's pretty crazy. Wonder what builds he's using.
Your seams are showing. You've been struck.
Protected.
See, I'm freezing right there. I should have been using bombs. I'm trying to process it.
People.
See, I got teleport. I'm getting a little bit better at that.
Sharp blades, sharp minds.
we go.
Blades away.
Protected. Clear for approach.
Fury rising.
A new pattern revealed.
Maybe I was the original alone.
Sharp blades, sharp mind.
Oh, I think I needed to go to the one behind where he was at. I keep going to where he was at. Somebody else got it too. Alex Justice. No. I think I'm gonna call the stream for tonight. It's kind of... Well, you guys can watch. I'll just keep it going for those who haven't seen what the raids are like. And I've just, like I said, put up this arc DPS because it's pretty easy. I had trouble with it before. It never really loaded right either. But then with this new system like Blish HUD, which is pretty new, and then there's which I haven't installed, Taco into Blish HUD, which there's a process to do that. However, the Arc DPS comes with, what is it called? Add-on manager. So if you get add-on manager, you can be able to get that with it, and there's a few other things that come with it as well. I just got a free version of YOLO Mouse, and I'm using this green, and I could see it a little bit better than what I was dealing with before with just the arrow. When then you click with the bombs, it still does that circular target. And there's other ways, I guess, you know, there's other ways that to go about changing that. I don't know if Blish HUD has something in there for that. But it's, you know, making the game different for me, and I'm kind of having to get used to it. Seeing people's damage and just looking at it from that perspective. It's interesting though, because like I've played this game and, you know, gotten through pretty much the whole game without looking at DPS so far, you know. I mean, completed the End of Dragons event without looking at DPS, completed the raids without looking at DPS, and like, you know, you meet all different types of people, and the people that I worked with are really cool. They just go in there and they do it, you know, and that's the type of people that I've really enjoyed accomplishing different aspects of the game with. I was running Hollow Smith build, and I'm pretty new to this Mechanist build, like really new to it. Like this is like the third event that I've done. Really, it's the second event that I've done. We've gone through this a few times. Is 1 kill shot, don't get in that rectangular path. Oh, they got it. So I was saying, I said I keep staying in the wrong eclipse, methinks, and I keep forgetting to use teleport. I'm down to do one more here. But I was about to stop the stream too. This is like one of those really casual late night evenings with me. That's kind of how I look at this. I was about to watch The Island. You know, I might still have it in me if they end these streams and go back to working on map completion. You know, this game has really challenging aspects to it, you know, but you can play it like solitaire, where it's just like something that you do while you're listening to audiobooks or doing something else, you know. Fishing is great for that. Like, I was talking and fishing the other day, and it was just like easy to just talk and do the fishing. So like, I'm real big about doing fun stuff together online and collaborating in a beneficial way, you know, making use of that through leveraging points, and yet maintaining, like, you know, maintaining your sense of self and your walls for your family, and respects to, you know, your family's privacy, which I don't even know about, you know, these systems listening in, you know, but it is what it is.
Rare treasure.
These strike missions are easier than raids. They really are, and they're fun. I'm enjoying them. It feels like a raid. It's like almost like a preparation for raids.
Fast as the wind.
A new pattern revealed.
Just let go.
Your seeds are shown.
Close your eyes.
Dang. I don't know if my teleport was up again. I'm gonna look back at that. I'm gonna look back at the video and be like, yep, your teleport was probably up. No way to know right now. It's like these one-hit kills. I'm not used to that. It's like down. But, you know. saying it's the first time for. It's like I didn't know that that big ring is an instant kill. I mean, for all I knew, it was just gonna debuff me, and I just had to like try to get out of it. I tried rolling out of it, but I didn't have any endurance, and just like being able to monitor your, you have two rolls of endurance, and being able to maintain your endurance and make it work. And like I'm kind of glad to explain, like right now this game is in this weird area where a lot of new people are looking at it, and then a lot of the seasoned players are kind of going about things in the way that they've gone about things. And you got someone like, Mighty Teapot, who's in the middle trying to make peace with the sides and make sense of it. And really, like, I'm looking at our world and seeing that our world is going through a lot of changes and dynamics, and like I do my best not to neglect the actual like responsibilities as participating within our local communities, wherever that is, and then wondering about the the orchestration of the different stories and who we are within that story, and capabilities of looking at the computer and digital realm as being a unique place. And I think that sometimes it can be a challenge. Oh, okay, so this is that event that's the meta, but it's a strike mission, which is different. Okay, I'm getting how this works with the strike missions. That's cool. So it's like a private dungeon, but it's insta-kill if you die. And then they like move you to see the fight. That's cool too. Fluffy Tofu's at 4 million damage. He's not doing the same raid build. I don't think that I was using. A U2 brick wall. This is Dr. Rat. Oh, there you go. You can select. So Anka 23%. They'll get it down. This is also how you can get through. You get a good group that just knows what they're doing. You can get through, just naturally do, even if you don't mean to. Like, you want to do it yourself and complete it, and then you get groups that just naturally will go through and get it done. And you're like, alright, well, I'll keep doing it and get through myself alive. Just gotta practice. But like, I have a lot of respect for the different types of players that do play this game, and there's like a lot of people who don't want to jump in. They don't want to jump into some of the higher end content like this right off the bat, and you can kind of explore the materia and the different quests, and there's a lot of stuff that is, based on novelties and humorous happenings. It really gives you a sense of like a basic MMO in its bare form. Killing bats and doing these simple quests. But then as you progress, they give you different challenges. Challenges. Oh, he's saying just watch YouTube. He posts a lot of stuff on the Discord channel too. That was my first time. I need to watch the strikes on YouTube, I guess. Now that's like a big thing that people do, is for all the different raids and all the different strikes, is they watch the YouTube channel, you know, the videos. But sometimes those go like for hours, you know, because like different people talking, command strategies, and so you have to find the right ones that give you that sense of like the full fight and the strategy within like a brief, you know, 10-minute period. I could be able to, I guess, orchestrate those if I did more of these and was focusing on that, but there's so many different things to focus on this day and age with technology. And I haven't been just focused on the gaming and Guild Wars 2. I've been looking at artists and bridging the gaps with marketing through networking and promotions. And this is just because like I've worked in a lot of different industries, and I've seen that there's been this gap in the way that we use technology, and it's been orchestrated based on a corporate sense of marketing and promotion, and it's lacking a little bit of that social local community vibe, that grassroots movement of doing something. And that's just because most of the things that have been introduced have been brought in by these, you know, these not theatrical, but like, you know, these organizations that set up events, you know, and do different things within a lot of different sectors, within the performance and presence based media views and whatnot. Do my best to stay alive throughout the whole fight here on this one.
Usually I prefer to handle these matters in private. But as deathbeds go, you could do worse. Enjoy the view!
I'm up. I'm up.
A new pattern revealed.
I represent Kanto's future. You're mere pests in the way.
This is the best part of the job.
Protected.
jail cell ready. Pull off the pillow myself.
Stay synchronized, you two. Strengthen pairs.
Protected.
You
know
need
who
to be
you're dealing with?
ostentatious now. It's unbecoming.
Your seams are showing.
Protected.
Sharper still.
Bad shake here.
Fast as the wind.
A new pattern revealed.
feeling a lot better with this than I was last round. But I've done this before, so I feel, you know, I know kind of a little bit of the battle, you know, beforehand. Knock on wood, I mean, there's still room for mistakes.
Protected. Sharp blades, sharp mind. Overcharge the reactor.
My powers combine.
Activating hardline emitter.
You'll see it.
Protected. Overcharge the reactor.
Right. At last.
My bad, I stood right on top of Drake. I got a little bit too much love there. Oh shit, no, not right in front. Ah! Yo!
Sharp blades, sharp mind.
Enough of you dudes. Right. At last.
Hold it together.
The dankest of memes is his name. I keep attacking him because he's got the target on his head. I'm going for it, and my eyes are watering. I got my glasses on. I need to wear those gunners more. Ah! Thank you for the res.
Fury rising! Strongest.
Melt away.
Sharp blade, sharp mind.
Oh yeah, he starts doing it in the corner here.
Better let this move down.
Thank you. You can't keep a good man down.
Enough! Enough! I can
Third,
see it.
fourth. There we go. That's cool. Fun. Oh, he's a gunblade. That's what, What happened? What did he say? Yeah, that was my first time surviving all the way through for reals. Because last time I made it through, but it was at 33%. just so many videos. You'd have to organize them. I mean, I've thought about organizing them on a blog and just having them specific pages for specific things. And you can have, I think that's already been done too. I mean, there's people who explain things, and it's just a matter of sharing the right websites that do that, you know. In many ways, it should be done multiple times over by guild leaders, and that's something that, you know, I've thought about doing because I'm representing Ethos del Terra Sol as well.
This is a place of refuge, not a den of iniquity. I'm glad Viri isn't alive to see his niece
Go over to Arborstone here, see what they're doing. You do a 5-man, I think, maybe?
May the Six watch over you.
I don't know much about the strikes. Like, I haven't organized my brain around it. My brain's been organizing myself around internet networking, marketing, and not scamming people, and communicating good businesses and ways to leverage and to stay out of scams. And I'm not real big on tokens, to be honest. Like, I like Bitcoin, but I look at Bitcoin no differently than, you know, gold here, and I don't look at it as a stock. So, like, it has value based on its nature, but it moves at its own volatile pace, and it has its layerings beyond just what we're told. So, like, I'm not necessarily you know, focused so much on Guild Wars 2, or I haven't been. Like, I'm looking at Guild Wars 2 as being a game that's just coming into play in a way that wasn't available for the masses before. Like, when Guild Wars 2 first started with Tyria, this main core map, it didn't have, like, those basic things that make the depth of a MMO click, but really there hasn't been any MMO out there that has done that, you know. And it's kind of like, this is one of those that got in a nice little pocket of development right after World of Warcraft, and there was like big hype for something new, and a lot of the ideas from Guild Wars 1 were right after the time of EverQuest and at the beginnings of EverQuest 2 and World of Warcraft. And so because of that, you know, a lot of people enjoyed Guild Wars 1 and stayed with Guild Wars 1. I demoed it and liked it and was kind of, in a way, playing with it alongside of EverQuest 2, and I wasn't enjoying EverQuest 2, and I was trying the PvP for Guild Wars 1 demo. And you know, I was just like, alright, this is pretty cool. And I did a few PvP matches. I think I remember as like an Asura class or Necromancer, a range or something, but I kept dying in PvP. I just was pwned constantly. I'm like, I can't keep up with this. My computer wasn't running that fast. It's like, I've always had system issues. Like when I first bought EverQuest back in 2001, like my system couldn't run it. I had to wait like 6 months to save up enough money working a job. You know, at that age, I was like 16, 17. I mean, I've been working since I was young, you know, doing various jobs. Working like odd jobs at 7, up to 10, and then 11 doing like a newspaper route, and then 13 working, you know. And so it's like I've been doing a lot of work, and a lot of my energy and focus has been spent in these realms, and the different realms and these authors. You know, it's like no different than being immersed in a book, and that's kind of how I've been looking at it, is, you know, having that immersion experience alongside of others, and doing it in a way that has a sense of building and profitability with not just the monetary view, but the experience as well. You know, like that's really important to me, and it's been really important to me. And I've been questioning a lot of the ways that the markets have organized information and entertainment and allow for a certain kind of experience, which I'm not against that experience at all. You know, I think that it's really been a blessing to have the freedom to choose multiple different types of environments to go meet others and whatnot. It's just the internet has a much different scope than real life, you know, and a lot of times if you look at what's going on in real life, a lot of the simplicity of some of the games and you know, places that people meet up, like even looking at casinos and stuff, there's not really depth there, you know. It's really just no different than what Bitcoin would be if no one gave attention to it as a actual digital decentralized form of trading. And it's not like something that anyone really can fully monitor and prevent when it runs on its own, you know, algorithmic system, which is believed to be set up by an AI system. So it's like, how can you really turn that off, you know? And that's what I think is integrated or integratable, or it has connotations or potential framework to the AI system that is running, but I think it may be secured in its own way to where it's separate from that, to where it can't be tampered with on that level by machine or man. But you know, with quantum computing coming into play, and what, you know, what level of access are we talking about for the common personal computer user? And then, you know, you have already the governments who have been doing stuff behind the scenes, orchestrating, you know, test pilot projects prior to the release to public use of. So, you know, as like as citizens or participating within our communities, that, you know, we aren't necessarily dealing with the best technologies or the top end capabilities. We're dealing with the muck of orchestrating the layers that have provided for a lot of people to enjoy this earth beyond old laws or old perceptions, breaking free from old ideals or things that no longer serve we the people and what our interests are on the bigger, you know, global scale, now that we have these digital lenses and bird's eye views, you know. And in film, you know, the bird's eye view is called the God's eye view. So how I've looked at a lot of these different belief systems and religions that have popped up, you know, over the ages prior to the cloud and the digital net that we've got going here with games and a bunch of different stuff going on, is that, like, you know, we're at this transitionary point where we, you know, are able to choose beyond what we've been genetically over the last 2,000, 4,000, 6,000, 8,000, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 years to progress as. And I think that, you know, there's definitely been some type of shift between a spiritual, more spiritual and dynamically in tune experience as a star being, or, you know, we're all made of stardust here, you know. So not talking about just dinosaurs, but we as this as I don't even like using the word human anymore, but like as man or women. And there's a whole story about, like, there's something about Eve and Lilith, you know, and I've been looking at, like, I want to kind of touch on this real quick. Eve, if you look at populations of people prior to naming, you know, like his name's Jonathan or his name's Michael or Matthew or James, you know, prior to the namings of names, you know, you had Adam, which was man. So it's like you can look at that as a singular name or as a cluster of beings that were, and they didn't have a sense of self, and these are the early beginnings of the structuring of our organization to be this global entity that we are today. Our global, you know, and I like the sense of being able to be an individual, you know, and recognizing that people need that space. But, like, you know, looking at the Adam and man back then, and Eve, and the prior to that, there's talk of a Lilith. And if you look at women and look at man, and you look at men and women, and there was no separation from, especially, you know, before the language of it. So you have Adam being man and women. There was no separation in language to that. Yet there was a separation in form based on Lilith being of a more unharnessed essence, is one way to look at it. And then you have Eve that comes into play based on men becoming aware of the challenges of the knowledge of good and evil. And so in those challenges of the knowledge of good and evil, same with women going through the same thing, you start organizing, men start organizing self, and you start getting these new sense of mannerisms and a new sense of care for the being and one another as neighbors. And so then you have this Eve presence that is formed, and it's like a taken away from the wilderness and the innocence and put into this dynamic of realism. And this is, you know, you have these different senses, and you have these different challenges now as being man and woman, and in that you start seeing the progression of Cain and Abel's story, which, you know, if you look at it based on groups of people and tribal perspectives back then, and that writings, you're looking at the original beginnings of agriculturalists and the beginnings of the, you know, kind of rift between agriculturalists and herders and the Mongols and the kind of people who would live off the land and be able to hunt and gather for the goods and supplies, and they didn't think about creating, you know, cities based around food and gardening and stuff. So it's like you have these two rifts where it's almost like this really gritty, and even like forms of cannibalism that were in existence and have been in existence, you know, in this reality of whether it's ignorance or that's just kind of the way that the you know, whatever energy or frequency hit in that time period and that ethos for whatever reasons that stack the layerings of those, you know, certain peoples to become a certain way. And then you have chemical reactions over time, multiple different chemical reactions of different groups of people, you know, making love and babies and also doing all this stuff with you know, business as warfare, and knowing that there's been, instead of fighting with physical violence, men and women have found ways to form agreements, and that's where your laws and your systems of processes have come into place. But what's a little bit crazy about it is that a lot of this formed before the mathematical powers of technologies, yet there's been certain things that have been really advanced, out of touch from the masses, and now the masses are kind of coming up to a speed of who are we in tune with, you know, who's our brother and sister, and you know, and it's like, well, we're all children of the Most High God, and we're all brothers and sisters of the Most High. You know, we're all brothers and sisters as children of the Most High God, you know, is the sentiments and the sense of self that I've been working with, alongside knowing that, you know, our currency is saying God we trust, and the trust is what's valuable there. And then you have, you know, all these new currencies representing nodes of information and nodes of representing a space online, you know. And so that's what I like about these games, and this game in particular, Guild Wars 2, because it's really rich, and at the same time, the very early beginning levels, like I was saying, can play like a very simple-minded, like early, you know, more dynamic, but also it has fun aspects, like playful aspects, but kind of like a WoW or EverQuest. But I don't think it's as confusing as EverQuest can get at the early levels, and it's not so boring. There's always something kind of pulling you from one place to the next, so you're constantly wanting to progress, open up the map. You know, EverQuest doesn't really have a map that you open up. You have to kind of just be in the dark about all the different zones, and you don't really have a reason to go there. So if you're in the starting zone, you're just going to follow the basic starting quests, and then it goes off, and you really need a guild and people to explain the more dynamics. But it's really simple. It doesn't have the fast-paced, quick combat that Guild Wars 2 has. It doesn't have that legendary kind of account-based tierings. It's really about just getting a legendary for 1 or 2 characters. A lot of people be playing EverQuest, and they be playing in different servers and different old school servers, you know. And I know there's other people who don't play EverQuest, but they play games like Ragnarok, or they play games like World of Warcraft. And Final Fantasy 14 is a big online one that people be playing. But I like this one because of the scene. This is really beautiful in the art. They put a lot of heart in the art based on the graphics for what it is. And they've also put a lot of heart in the depths of the dynamics of the game, and it kind of has a sense of being aware of people's real lives, and that people who work, you know, full-time jobs play this game as well, beyond people who have a lot of freedom to be able to play, or they go to school and they play in the evenings, you know, when they get off after doing their homeworks and stuff. Because we got all ages that play this game. I mean, we got people who are in their, you know, in their teens playing, and sometimes our community can be all over the place because we have ages that are all over the place, and so it can be really intense for people to be able to be aware that the dynamics of this game is just it is just a game, and there's ways for people to play in a way that can help you know, grow the community, and it really should be about the community. And I look at the Guild Wars 2 as being a tribe community, and you know, we're already connecting with the greater communities with Facebook, you know, being 3 billion users. And so sometimes just looking at the TV news based on countries and states is not really looking at the bigger picture of what's going on a global level, on a global sense, and a global scale. And sometimes it can be so overwhelming that we think as individuals we can't deal with that, or we aren't able to deal with some of the bigger issues. But if you take a moment to step back and say, no, I'm willing to deal with the micro level of presence, and it's really about presence, but like deal with the micro levels of presence and do it in a way where you're doing it alongside others, for being able to build a sense of self with the intent of being affiliated with different businesses, and help promote different games and avenues of expression that people have going out there, and they're looking to make a living in the realm of their, you know, dreams that they're working on. So and not just that, but things stack on themselves. So when someone learns the skill sets and works on certain projects, they gain skills, and then those skills can be used on other projects as well. I'm just looking at the more people who get involved in that space, the more ideas for developing, you know, projects for those people to work on. And there's a lot of different focus that's been geared towards the Hollywood. You know, it's kind of like the NFL sports, and like all the different challenges that we got out there. And you got the mainstream, you know, the best of the best, and the you know, the most entertaining is the ratings on all those different structures that form that world. But the digital cloud is a little bit different. And in that, you know, like, I'd rather be gaming with people and talking while gaming and giving, you know, my wisdoms that I've gained over the years in a gaming sense, than just, you know, inviting y'all in to join the guild, my guild, Ethos del Terra Sol, and, you know, any other guild that you see me representing if you'd like, while I'm live streaming. I'm all about helping live streamers, and also really into helping artists, because I know what it's like to struggle as an artist. And if we can be able to help each other out and get people into an idea that I also have about creating a process of getting people to spend a little bit of their focus and attention on those who are willing to do the same, but not just to follow for a follow, but an actual
What have you been moving?
Food, mostly.
a unique way of basically saying, if you would like to be a guild leader or a leader on your own and do your own thing, I would still love to be interconnected or network with you, whether it's for Guild Wars 2 alliances, or be it cross-promotional networking reasonings, communication on good businesses versus negative businesses. There's a lot of online networking businesses that I've taken a lot of risks over the last 10 years to get an idea a very strong sense of self with, you know, who I am within the markets of affiliate programming. I love like some of the stuff that's available now that wasn't available years ago, but like, you know, some of these bigger companies are finally coming around to the idea, and I'm loving that. You know, like I saw, I think, a Vans affiliation. You can be an affiliate for Vans and like a bunch of other big names. And you just have to look for them and be willing to promote those. And it's as simple as creating a blog and letting the blog do most of the work, and just learning the basics of knowing, you know, how to create a post, how to create pages, and how to create widgets. And then, you know, what widgets do you want on your blog? And you can do websites, that's fine. I'm just into a movement. Oh wait, Trex. This is good for me because I need to do practice on these. Do 16 through 23, alright? Guild track. So he's trying to get the treks done, I think, for reset, or maybe this is reset. No, reset should happen tomorrow at 10. Or tomorrow at 6. I don't know how that works. I've always been slow at these. Where are we going? He said 16 guild missions trek. Hard weekly. I wish these were numbered. That'd be so much easier. 3, 6, 9, 12. So Alter Brook layer. So this is part of the guild missions, and the guild missions are super easy, but some of them can be a little bit of a challenge because you have new players who don't know how to use their characters. I've been taking it really slow, and like I got my pops to try out the game, and he's taking it slow, and I'm doing my best to take it slow with him, and like I have to work with him not knowing anything, and it's like it's good for me to be able to practice that level of interaction with new players. And someone who's a little bit older, because older people do try out this game. I think somebody was saying that they're like 70. I saw another post on Facebook where they're like, yeah, my grandma plays, or something like that, you know, and so there's people in their older age who play this game, and they get involved, and there's different skill levels, and sometimes healing's a little bit easier than having to do some of the DPS roles. And there's different players who are really easygoing and work with you, and usually they get a lot of stuff done with some players who are new, and they get better and better and better. So it's like no different than any type of practice. There's a level of the more you do it, the better you get. And I look at our ability to build teams as that kind of layering structure. I see a lot of people who get isolated in one realm or another, and many times there's Yeah, many times there's
Rare treasure.
different level. I don't know, I lost my train of thought. I'm gonna focus in on this and then call it an evening. But this is good. Oh yeah, I think I was talking about guild. Yeah, there's different levels of gameplay. Maybe is that what I was saying? Relk's Salon. This is I'm going to Al Mutant Waypoint, just around the corner. So I've done this with a group of people, not all of them. The idea would be to get them all done, and just everybody follows everybody. I think it'd be fun to go, you know, but I think they usually split up to go faster. It's really what anybody wants to do, but you get points for doing it, so you might as well just go together as a guild and get all the points together, is how I look at it. But some people don't want to go through all that, and it takes a while. Especially if you're locking and loading waypoints.
Need something?
Can't remember what this is. So that should pop up. So they race each other, I think, and I'm going all slow like. So these are the hard opportunities, but this is how you level up your guild too, so I'm glad I'm helping out here. All slow like. Scholars. Bind.
How may I assist you?
Know all about that Scholars Bind. Okay, and then I just need to go south and into the cave. I might as well look at the next one too. Deepmire Diver. Oh. I have
treasure.
a feeling I didn't loot that corpse. I mean, I didn't loot the Lee's what's it called? I think I missed a chest there at the end. See that? Because my bags were full. I think gold is gonna start being valuable here soon too. Okay, this is weird. There should be one in here. I wonder if there's a timer once you get started. Scholars find. There it is. Interesting place for it. There we go. And I forgot the other one again. Dietmeier, Diver. Yeah, I might pick up some artichokes. I need to go to the Hidden Garden too. Nashar's Viewpoint, Scorched Jaws, Watchtower. No, that's not me. Nope, I got that wrong. The name was a little bit off too. I kind of skipped one. Starts with R. Oh good, they got it. Good. I'm done. Do that. But yeah, that's like the second time that I've used ArcDPS. Second or third time I've used ArcDPS for these fights. I'm kind of getting used to the whole new dynamic of being advanced. But I'm enjoying Blish HUD, and you can do like journal notes, you know, Commander's Choir as a journal. And so that kind of brings things into the game and the realm, and you can use that journal for real life stuff as well. And like, I know people be using all these different, you know, websites. You got the calendars and, you know, different competing websites for attention and, you know, email systems, and it gets overwhelming, the amount of different pushing and pulling going on in the industry with technologies. And people have been the ones footing the bill for all of it. You know, in our mass integration, we've been paying for the leveling ups of technology, you know, as we've gone. And so like, I'm looking at what are we doing as people to make use of it in the best light to casually start
I've got what you need.
making it you know, making our world a better place through helping one another out.
May Lissa aid you.
See, these are really cool. You can get decorations for the guild. No, I need a guild hall for that, but there's a bunch of different stuff.
Farewell.
Kind of build it up over time, a little at a time. Sounds like the music sounds like it's Adventure Box, which I don't know if Adventure Box is coming back soon, if that's what it's referring to. I'm gonna go ahead and real quick teleport to the Maelstrom and see if the secret garden's up. I'm pretty sure I didn't loot that chest for some reason, but it didn't really trigger me to loot anything, so maybe I did. It like automatically did. That's one thing, like when I was playing with my pops, he was like, why do I have to like loot everything? And he's like, why isn't it automatically looting? And I was like, oh yeah, you don't have the mastery yet. So there's like a mastery to even get auto looting, and that's like a higher, like level 30 or something like that. So there's like certain things about this game where it's not just about the game, and I'm seeing other games introduce, like even EverQuest introduced Chronos. But there's certain layers, and I mention it based on comfortability, and it's something that as you start progressing, it doesn't take much, but there's a few things that just make your gameplay or your experience within the gameplay more comfortable. And I can go over those real quick while I'm doing this. Might as well. But one of them is meta battle. I mean, going to meta battle and looking at the different builds and working on a specific build for whatever class you're working on, and focusing on that build for a long-term perspective. And in doing so, you'll learn how to play one class and one specialization with that class well enough to be able to start doing different types of events. Now, yes, there is certain classes and skills that are sought after more than others. Now, healers always, get a placement in a raid group, or, they're always kind of wanted and needed. That being said, not everybody wants to play them. So, I mean, there is usually a spot available, and so it's a good class to kind of feel like you can be able to accomplish a good amount. I will say that sometimes, unlike other games, and this is just Guild Wars 2 in general, is that, and like I played a cleric in EverQuest, so like when it comes to MMORPGs and the way that I played a cleric in EverQuest, I could sit back and chat and heal and do a very much like it was preferred that the healer didn't engage so much as just focused on keeping everybody's health up and doing that job. Later on, as I got better gear, I would engage more and do a little bit more battle cleric kind of experience with it, and that was a lot of fun for a little while. But then, I'd started doing other stuff in reality, working with working jobs and playing music at the same time, and that's that's something that a lot of people I'm sure have done in this reality, is that's kind of been part of the layerings. It's kind of like a prize in many people's viewpoints to get to that level of stardom, and then to be able to progress as an artist with that level of respect, and there's been a lot of artists who have shaped our world based on their music and their creations, and that's really, really beautiful. I'm just looking at it as like there's a lot of new artists coming into play and wanting to fit in without necessarily, it's already becoming an overwhelming market if you look at the way stars and television and even the internet now has been kind of orchestrated, and there's a level of control over most of it, based on the early layerings of military and what's the word, surveillance and censorship. There's a level of knowing that younger generations and older generations are integrating online, and what age is the right age, and there's sensitive parents and a lot of different dynamics of how things really come into play based on laws and what we accept and what people are doing with what is. And there's a lot of information and misinformation, and it can be a real challenge to be alive at this time if you're persuaded one way or another to go this way or that way. For me, I've been injured when I was born based on circumstances out of my control, and at the same time I've learned a lot and have done my best to temper my being based on the challenges that have come with that. There's been times when I've been completely unable to do more than what I've been able to do, and there's been times when I've been able to do more than I even thought I was capable of doing, but someone who believes in a greater spirit, the Most High, and has a will or a drive to do something in this world, to seeing the challenges and growing up with challenges and not wanting others to go through those challenges, it's the same kind of story that you've heard, no different than any movie or hero progression kind of story. The biggest thing though is that if we're using technology, and technology is speeding up our interactions and involvement with one another, the last thing that I've wanted to do, and I've learned over the years, is I don't want to jump full head first into solving problems if I'm having trouble or am looking at my own reality as having dynamics of challenges to overcome, And in many ways, a lot of us can get into this mode of kind of like a Groundhog Day experience, where we accept certain things and just go about our lives, and then, you know, certain things just get overwhelming and you start complaining alongside others, and then, you know, it kind of tempers down, you know, simmers down a little bit, and then people go back to doing the best to do what they can based on the energy flow and acceptance of what the reality is, you know, whether it's business or play. There's usually layers in between. You know, you want to go to the pool, well, you got to buy some swimsuits. You know, what swimsuit you're gonna buy? Well, there's a competitive market out there for swimsuits. You know, you got your different brands promoting different things, and so like, you know, there's going back to the circus. You got this level of and it's not just the circus, but you know what I mean, the mainstream narrative or the mainstream stories, your mainstream sports and your mainstream back and forths, up and down and outs. You know, you're gonna get a sense of everything's okay, and we're gonna, you know, do the best we can. You'll get a little snippet of this and that, and that's part of your censorship organization, knowing that there's older and younger heads out here and wanting to not let information tear people apart, but allow information to bring us together. And so there's this level of information in many ways doing a little bit of both right now, because we're in a state of transition, is what I've called it. And my focus is, for this reasoning, on Guild Wars 2, and I like giving attention to Guild Wars 2 because it pressures, you know, the players who've been playing for a while have naturally been able to adapt and grow into this game, you know, but the newer players, it puts a little bit of pressure on your play style, you know, and especially if you're coming from other games where things are a little bit more planned, and it's a little bit more of a strategy based on, you know, your skill sets working with the target mob and accomplishing whatever it is that you're looking to accomplish based on your skill sets and your spells. It can be a little bit more in the background, like, you know, healer classes play their class specifically, and it's there's a lot less. And WoW kind of started pulling away from how EverQuest was really class specific, and it really required a full group of different classes to accomplish things. WoW kind of pulled away from that and made it a little bit more simple, and this like kind of like brought it to a level of anyone can solo, because everyone has their own heal capabilities. Even Thief has, you know, the ability to bandage and heal himself up in this game, but it's fast paced, so like, you know, your damage goes down real fast sometimes, and then it goes up real fast based on whatever skill set you're working with. And even combinations and weapon, you know, sigils, which define how the weapon works, you know. So I mean, you can get it to where your weapon sigil heals you, and as you're hitting, you're healing yourself, you know, and your group around you. It just depends on what you use. But it doesn't make sense for the whole group to do that, because then you're losing a lot of damage, and there's other sigils that a damage player can use. So like, if you're healing all around and you're doing a support class, it makes sense to do something like that, and you can really emphasize that role, and then you get the most bang for your buck with that role, while everyone else emphasizes their roles and get the most bang for their buck with those roles. And then in the integrating of the different boons and debuffs and knowing how to play your character in a way that your rotations, like the time in which, you know, certain skills and how certain skills amplify other skills within your weapon set. So you have your base skills and then your weapon skills. It's like creates combos, and those combos is what gives this game a lot of life in your ability to kind of flow with your different capabilities. And so as you get better and more familiar and in tune with your character, it shows based on your different pathways of gameplay within this game. So like, if you're new, like thinking about jumping into world versus world and player versus player should be something that you look forward to, but don't crave to jump in those places right off the bat, really, to like, unless that's what you want to focus on. World versus world will give you a little bit better of a sense, but that can be a little bit harsh too if you're not running around with the command and you're just learning. I'm all about, if you're new, practice your unranked as much as possible. Get your unranked, you know, your first 20 levels of unranked, so you can, or you are able to join any type of ranked matches, and then with your unranked, practice your, you know, a certain build until you get your build comfortable. And once you are on that level of knowing how the different matches work and you're comfortable with your build, then you start jumping into you know, PvP and whatnot. And it's a little bit different than raiding. You know, DPS obviously does matter, but being able to be, you know, on your toes and do what you got to do is part of the game. For me, like, I'm doing my best to create this interesting lift in reality, and kind of doing this pay it forwards insurance kind of network with gaming, no matter what games you're playing. So what I'm calling my guild is a massive multiplayer online gaming entrepreneurship network. So multiplayer massive multiplayer online gaming entrepreneur network. Yeah, there we go. It's pretty straightforward. I'm currently promoting 2 businesses. I'm not necessarily sure about one of them. The shopping mall is pretty much a no-brainer. It ain't necessarily any type of get rich quick scheme. You know, it's very much just a membership to an online mall where you are able to earn commissions by signing up other members. It's a very straightforward, no-brainer kind of building, stacking process, and I think it's a great way to be able to introduce affiliate marketing to people and blogging to people, and creating a sense of keeping an eye on others, but also maintaining your own lane and not being required to, you know, do anything outside of your own will. You should have the free will to make decisions on who you would like to support at any given moment, and I've been real big on that. I've also been real big about not promoting business-related affairs within the game. You know, I'm also, you know, it's like I have my name, Elixium, so I'm automatically promoting my avatar with my avatar, and I even have Jay Sumner in one of my characters. I've got Ethos Del Terra Sol as the community guild, and you can do this with any game, you know, and especially any game that has guild capabilities and you would like to be a leader, and then focus on helping people within the game and doing stuff within the game. So like, I'm really big about getting it right and doing it right, and I can kind of be overthinking a lot of the different angles because I'm looking at what needs to happen in real life, not just the gaming. So it can kind of make me a little bit challenged because I'm doing my best not to get sucked into the gaming, because I've played video games and I've played massive multiplayer online role-playing games since 2001, playing with EverQuest until 2005 and 6. And you know, I had the experience of heartbreak with guilds. I've had the experience of going through learning new dynamics with guilds and meeting, you know, other members and you know, shopping for guilds, and then seeing, you know, oh, there's this guild that's able to do the end game progression, and signing up and applying and going through a rigorous training process, and then going from that into World of Warcraft, where I didn't necessarily have a guild, but you met some people along the way who had a guild, and it made sense to join them, and you do some stuff for a little while. But I only played for 6 months, you know, I didn't play that long, but I got a sense of the game and was like, this is really not for me. But I was grateful that people were doing stuff outside of just, you know, being rowdy in the sense of damaging other people's experiences, you know, back in my naivety, I didn't see the bigger picture of how that's been going on for a long time, damaging other people's experiences. But there's always, you know, seemingly a reason behind a reason behind a reason behind a reason, and, you know, people in their ignorances sometimes have fallen to lower dimensional experiences. But if you don't know about such things, how would you know the dimension exists beyond what you exist with, you know? And so people be talking about vibrating higher, but a lot of times it's not just about vibrating high and talking all the time. Like, I'm real big about my piece and doing my thing, based on keeping it steady with work and knowing that others are in tune with that. But there's also a lot of changes with the digital finance and digital spaces, like these games, but not just these games. I'm talking about, you know, legal forms of representation of agreed upon structure. You know, a lot of the structures, and this is something that I'm learning, is like a lot of the buildings and structure exists first on paper, and like knowing that, like, you know, the names and the titles and the properties are on paper first, and that's what defines and gives value to the actual reality of what it is. Then you start seeing the world very much as this moving system, and it's been developing in a way that was developed prior to digital transactions. The digital transactions have only amplified the flow and capability of locking it into place, creating that framework that's solidified. And that's where the challenge comes in for the any governments or any leader or any presence, you know, with social media has to deal with, is that we're reaching this level of equitable playing field with our tools and technology and capabilities, and what we do with it in the long run, based on the computers kind of meeting this melting point, or this point of being able to do a lot of different stuff. Like, my pop's computer is pretty old, but he can still log in and do certain things within this game at lower graphics. My system is pretty new, as a used system that I got about 2 years ago, a year ago now, and I had to do a lot of upgrades to it to be able to do the live stream and do the gaming at decent graphics. The DirectX 11 with the Guild Wars 2 has helped a lot. And then there's been a lot of stuff that I've had to learn about how to set up the stream, and how sometimes, like, you know, it can be as simple as, you know, you're outputting at a lower frame rate, or you're outputting at a lower frequency, or lower screen, you know, dimension size. And it can mess up a lot of things, and you know, you think you're doing it right on one way, where you think you're uploading high definition videos, but your output or input is not in tune with each other, and it's coming out wrong, you know. And so, like, that's why I'm big about the gaming and the live streaming and helping people to create, you know, a presence with blogging and networking, because what you're doing is you're learning the bare minimum tools that you should know if you decide to go deeper in the route of a profession with digital media or digital art, you know. And there's a lot of free tools that weren't available for me and my younger, you know, self, and I'm looking at those tools now and wanting to let the younger generations know that, hey, no one's really telling you these things, you know, and so you're gonna be given the same information that has been given to me and my generations before, which is, you know, you go to school, get a degree, you go to college, get a job, or you get a job and you go to college, you get a job, and then you eventually go to college or trade school, you go to the military. You know, it's like everything's organized. That's your framework. You don't have to stick within those realms, but I don't want to be responsible for anyone more than my own self in this reality, you know? And so that's why I've chosen platforms that provide a sense of knowing how to solo, but also developing your own sense of self in such a way that you know that you can hold your own when you meet others, and provide levels of interaction. And this is where the challenge has been in the community building space, and the networking space, and the art medium space within YouTube and Facebook and these social medias. It's like you got some really heavy hitters out here talking and doing really cool stuff, you know, but everybody's staying in their own lane and doing their own thing. And I'm looking at it as like, I don't really like the idea of everybody talking to me, and we're not doing something on an equitable playing field. So like, I'm big about gaming and making the stances leverage, and then sharing capabilities like, yo, I want this person to, you know, direct my next video and work with his team, you know, but he has a team of people who is able to orchestrate stuff happening. And so that's where you have businesses that come into play, your LLCs, and then, you know, being able to have the ability to pay people for the work that they do, you know? And so then you're talking about micro production companies popping up, which people are capable of doing really some good high-end micro production capabilities with smartphones almost these days. You know, it's just a matter of what you know how to do and what you're working with software-wise. But, you know, what are you going to build? And you still need ideas and creativity, and a lot of times people are just doing their best to make rent, and there's definitely some changes that need to happen within the rulers in high places and the bureaucratic structure, but I don't really have any type of position within that realm, you know. The realms that I have positioning in is the digital space, and knowing that you know, that archaic or the old school or the land-based, you know, connected by sewer system realm, the realm of man and paper, has its dynamics that are evolving and transitioning, and people are a little bit all over the place with it, and people are talking about a lot of different things with it. And so, like, how are we going to align as a people in use of the technologies, knowing that we have the youth and the older generations working at these different jobs and doing their hourly paid positions and whatnot, and I'm very appreciative of my ability to have had work and live in this dynamic, ever-changing world we live in, you know. And I know that there's a lot of people who are frustrated with the way that things have been based on the pricings and the inflations and the layerings and the knowledge that we didn't have, what we are able to see now that we weren't able to see. But there's a lot of stuff going on that's so intense that the media, social media, is running all types of algorithms preventing people from seeing a real-time picture of all the negative and positive at the same time. And so it's really like partly up to the community to maintain a level of spirit with information and that they're sharing. But I've been big about wanting to share all types of information right off the bat before any of these algorithms have really locked into play, to give people a sense of, you know, information may be false or true, and giving a sense of, like, with CGI in play, you know, it's no different than playing Guild Wars 2 and practicing for being able to accomplish different strike missions, and the more you do it and the more knowledge you get of the actual gameplay and mechanics of the fights or the organization, then you're able to work more smoothly to accomplish what it is that you're looking to accomplish. And so language has been a real challenge, but also placement in dynamics of what's real and what's not real, and what's a scam, what's not a scam, and what has genuine weight based on other dynamics going on. So, like, for me, knowing that there's different churches and different temples and different places like libraries, and you got your different science centers and museums, and there's just all types of, you know, you got your history, you got all types of information and organizations that have happened with the framework, and that framework is not something to be afraid of or angsty or negative about, even though there is some things about it that would cause anyone to question the future of our existence, which would be that advanced, you know, robotics and the long-term purposing of the monitoring through facial recognition and organizing huge cityscapes based on the jobs available and and you know, that sense of being monitored by AI and audio and video on our phones, you know, full time. Even, you know, I don't even know when it's off also, but there's been talk about even when your phone's off, it's still recording audio, or audio's going somewhere perhaps, I don't know. There's always some type of conspiracy theory that can take things, you know, off the edge, but there's also certain things that kind of, in many ways, the conspiracy theories are presenting different viewpoints on things that are many times brushed under the rug. And we know that for a fact, you know, certain things they come off one way, but there's really other layers going on beneath the surface. I mean, honestly, O.J. Simpson trial and all that is really one of those prime examples of what I'm talking about. just being, you know, a lot of speculation, or a lot of kind of people have been saying that his son is the one who did it, but he kind of took the hit for it because he was young at the time, and it was a fit of rage and emotional, whatever trauma, or, you know, being in the spotlight as a star can be a challenge because you're getting hit with, you know, where attention goes, energy flows is the statement, and so, like, you know, these people who are in the spotlight with stardom and dealing with different types of energies, they're dealing with the masses' energies, and they have had different, whether they're true or not true, stories going off to be able to orchestrate people on a mass level's mindset and vibes towards the one to orchestrate the celebratory or you know, cinematic, Hollywood-based presence of control and leadership, you know, and really, you know, people have been figuring it out as they go. You know, back in the day, I don't think back in the day when the whole idea of having police and cops, they were gonna have to deal with rock stars taking over the streets and having to, you know, orchestrate, you know, herds of people because of stardoms, you know. But that's where you have your interesting, you know, the whole Jesus dying on the cross, and that being idol worship, and people going off on that tangent, and here we are. So, you know, based on my readings and interpretations of it, you know, it was said not to have idols and go off on tangents of worshiping stars. So Guild Wars 2 is this really interesting happy medium where everyone gets to be their own star with avatars, and I'm taking it to another level with Avatar Blogupy Universe, Blogupy, Global Artist Revolution, or Global Artist Renaissance now, and not really so much into a revolution, as that gets a little bit too wily, and really we should be casually, you know, working on hobby-based trade skills. I'm all about the hemp revolution coming into play. I'm into a hemp revolution. That'd be cool. We need a hemp revolution. I totally know it's on the way. It's just a matter of being able to see it and integrate with people who are already involved with it, you know. So it's like, people are out there, but sometimes, and I know I'm guilty as charged with this, but I can focus in on kind of isolating myself to these soloable MMOs. Yet I'm looking at the bigger picture with the networking angle, and knowing that there's other gamers and artists looking to fix the gaps that have been present within the marketplaces. And like, if you're any musician or artist and you know like what it takes to promote an actual band, to get people to check you out and get kind of a sense of traction with your presence with what it is. I did this, you know, this was my life 2000, after I quit EverQuest, you know, doing the whole raiding business with, you know, I applied to that guild and got in with them and raided with them for about a year and a half, and ended up doing endgame content and feeling like I beat EverQuest by getting this amulet that turned you into a skeleton. You know, I thought that was a cute joke with it. Not that it's a joke, I mean, that's kind of actually endgame items, clickable items, that is kind of like a novelty within that game. EverQuest does have a bunch of different cool novelties, but it's not as quick paced, and there's not nearly as many that range. Like, this gives you the ability to do these heart emojis, and there's like bobbleheads. You can pull out instruments in this game. That's unheard of in any other MMO that I know, that you can, like, maybe in FF7, I don't know, I mean FF14, I don't know much about it, but being able to jam with others is just like, so like, I'm looking for fishermen and musicians, but also people who are looking to play the game, and also seasoned players to help me orchestrate this big idea that I've been wanting to help people start blogging and learning how to become affiliate marketers and networkers, and sharing some of the businesses and communicate about other businesses and participate and make decisions on viable ways to help others leverage online and to create these presences of being creators alongside one another, with a place to be able to grow and you know, attach portfolios, or attach other social media networks, or attach different, you know, work you might get into because you meet someone who's doing this. You know, who knows what this could become. I've been building based on faith and a greater spirit for so long, and I keep going, so I'm here to do what it is that I'm here to do. and to, you know, take one moment at a time. And I'm grateful to any of y'all who are listening to this. I've been getting some views, it looks like, on YouTube and I guess on Facebook too. So I appreciate y'all who have been listening and hearing me speak here and kind of getting started with all this, because once I talk about something, I do my best not to repeat myself unless it's pertaining to looking for someone to message me somehow. If you're able to get in touch with me, I shouldn't be too difficult to get in touch with, but you know, I'd be doing these unified chats. I'm planning on upping it up a notch by doing the what's it called, the gather.town. So gather.town lets people log into the 8-bit space, and there we can start, you know, I can start organizing a space outside of Guild Wars 2 space as a mediumship between Discord, but giving a little bit of a game space. So that's where I'll be able to orchestrate, because like I keep having people tell me to watch videos, but it's so much better where like you meet someone. Like if you have a commander, as a commander, I would like to meet you or multiple ones of you, and join in. Like if you're teaching PvP, for instance, right? You open up the gather.town window. You're not inviting them to Discord. You're giving them the gather.town, which gather.town lets you create spaces and links. You could do Discord and do share video. I mean, that works too. But really, I mean, like, or you can do the audio, and then you can go to like a PvP zone and show them how to do certain mechanics there. But I'm saying with gather.town is like going, if you want to pull videos that you want someone to watch, you can be able to bring them into a space with a 8-bit character, where you're an 8-bit character. You can have a whiteboard, and you can bring up YouTube videos to the whiteboard. So it's like basically being able to sit people down and say, hey, we're gonna learn this together, and then you can tab back into the game and do it. You know what I mean? But it's all right there in front of you, and you're still orchestrating to where people can be able to switch between. Now that's easier said than done, because not everybody knows how to alt-tab, but usually gamers are on that level of knowing how to operate their systems on a higher plane of capabilities. So that's the goal, is we need the people who are capable of aligning on a higher capable level with technology, to start aligning with one another and to help out the people who are looking to get involved with the leveraging online for ideally sustainable abundance. That's my premise. Like, I have a will for that premise, because if there's no sustainable future, there's no experience for anyone, right? I mean, that's the premise. And so it's like, there's been this level of, okay, urgency and requiring to build with others for the mutual respects of our beloved Mother Earth. And yet at the same time, there's this level of tempering spirits and finding that sense of, why are we alive if we're not having fun, and every day's a grind. We've been grinding since, 2,000 years we've been grinding to get to this point of being with the cloud. So now that we're with the cloud, why aren't we able to make use of that beyond just being advanced gamers, but to actually make use of it as gamers and advancing our skills and helping others to advance, but also represent a level of cross-promotional mutual support that's happening like a pay-it-forward insurance, but it's not as solidified or locked in the stone like any framework. It has this level of mutability. And that gets me into, and I'd like to finish out this live stream with this, but that gets me into the biggest challenge that Guild Wars 2 has. You got two types of players in the endgame. There's two advanced players in the endgame. You have your mathematics, who do things based on the command, and they have their organization, and you got this other that's kind of like these players who kind of patch their pieces together and put their their intent and will into making things happen. So it's almost like one's this chaos ball of energy that is capable enough to kind of like will their way through, and the other one is this very calculated, organized strategist. So it's like your Kirk. There we go. Like, it's basically your Kirk and your Mr. Spock from Star Trek. So a lot of us be Kirking it, and a lot of people be Mr. Spocking it. And then when you've got your meta battle and your background websites and your Wikipedia and all these different tools to bring it together, it's the people who are bringing the logic and the spiritual natures together, and that's how things are getting accomplished, not just within the game, but in real life as well. And so, like, your third dynamic, you know, your Father, your Son, and the Holy Spirit, looking at the technology, it's, you know, you got your native, you know, or not native, but your chief, your Indian, and your shaman, you know? And so, like, you kind of have to be all three on your own in this reality in many ways. You got to be able to, you know, monitor yourself and take care of yourself and be your own chief, and also be able to still work with others and be respectable and humble enough to know when to, like, you know, just be an Indian, you know, especially with family stuff. Sometimes you just got to be an Indian and listen to what the women are saying and, you know, do what you got to do, you know. And then you got, you know, that shaman nature, you know, when to be that, you know, see the wisdom in different causal events, you know, the nature in which making decisions based on a knowingness, you know, the Gnostics, and based on knowing different things. There's been very much interesting discussions that I've been having about mysticism and Gnosticism and the difference between. Like, I'm big on, you know, the Gnostics being those who know, and then the mystics are those who are in the process of experiencing that knowing with, you know, whatever the wonders of life brings at them in that awareness that, you know, this is it should be viewed as a gift, you know, it's original blessing versus original sin, and to not get lost in the fears or get lost in the world, but to make sense of a sense of brotherly, sisterly love with our day-to-day happenings, knowing that, you know, a lot of the challenges and pains have been due to ignorances and lack of knowledge of self. And I'm not saying I'm the end-all be-all about what it means to be knowledgeable of self. I've had a lot of different experiences, you know, a lot of out-of-body experiences, and a lot of different challenges to give me a sense of the dynamics and wide range of what it means to be fully knowledgeable of self. I just haven't fully gone one direction or another. I've been kind of like this. I've been, you know, I was one of those people that was told you can be anything in this life if you just put your mind to it, and then I was given the internet at a really young age to actually start questioning what different types of things are out there for me to get into, you know, and I didn't want to make a decision because there was so much to get into, and I just kept learning about what's out there while I was learning other stuff. And over the years, it's all kind of come together in a weird way, just for the simple fact that the you know, any plant needs a little bit of watering here and there, and how people and ideas are watered is something that I have to be able to integrate it into more effectively. You know, any advice out there in the digital community on how to be able to get some mutual crowdfunding going, because I know I'm not the only one who's looking to get some ideas funded, whether it's artists looking for music or you know, content creators making stuff for the Guild Wars 2 community and information. You know, a lot of people be making some of these same videos knowing that they're looking to get some views and maybe some monetization, but it's not really anything to, like, brag about a lot of times, unless you get a lot of views, like, you know, people replaying the video over and over, and usually those are the educational videos with the Guild Wars 2 versus the live streams and whatnot. So, you know, you got your artists and musicians, you know, working with copyrights and the industry labels and whatnot, and they got their contracts and agreements over the years with that contract to do things for that company and show up at certain places and do certain signings and do this and that. And it's like, you know, your life is basically, that's part of your job, and you're working that job for them. And I've done my best to maintain choosing different jobs in reality to stay away from having any type of overhead. And if I'm going to do art, I want to do art where I don't have that sense of overhead pushing me this way or that way within that framework, unless I choose to sign up for something within that framework and would like to participate with it, you know. And so, like, I'm not against it, I just am in such a transitionary cocoon kind of state right now with my own being, expressing myself even to y'all, and I've shared a lot of links about the different stuff that's going on out there. But this is kind of like, you know, this is like a big time for us to start waking up and saying, yo, I have a big part to play here if I choose to. And I'm emphasizing that everything that I express is based on giving people freedom of choice. So like, when I've been saying I've been here waiting, I mean it on a sense of service. Like, I can wait forever because that's my role as being a star being is to serve and to know that, you know, with such different knowings, such as like reincarnation or energy's never destroyed, and you know that we're universal and that time is just a human construct for us to have these experiences on a day in or day out level, but wanting to make sense of it with others is part of these different tunings, and you've had the different programmings to help with that. But in the end all be all, there's a lot of depth to each and every one of us, and how we choose to share that, and how to make sense of it to where it's actually bettering lives. And it doesn't just have to be about the finances, but it has to be about the attention and the trust and the giving more details to the information to be able to accomplish something other than just doing our best to constantly feel like we're learning to reach a point of being able to do something. So sometimes we can get so lost in the wanting to learn or feeling inadequate to the amount of information out there, we don't rise to the occasion to represent a place to stand or a mutual leveraging point that would be suggested to represent now that we are dealing with cloud computing and technologies. And you know, there is different competitions in the marketplaces and different ministers and people doing their job based on their framework that they've worked with and their guidance from their elders. But there's a lot of different types of elders, there's a lot of different types of frameworks with different foundations of information that provide spiritual tunings for groups of people, and a lot of it's coming to a head, and a lot of the younger generations are just looking at the technology, like the entertainment industry, as being the mainstream, you know, centering point. And I'm big on the centering point being, you know, recognizing the kingdom of heaven is within us, and that each and every one of us are brothers and sisters as children of the Most High God, or the Great Spirit, or a singular unifying force that holds all the universes together, you know, inner and outer. And then, you know, there's a bunch of science and chemical reactions, if you want to call them chemical reactions, but there's a lot of magic in our world that helps people to define experiences in different ways, and share insight on things that have happened that may be out of this world for some people, and is a very much normal aspect of our world for others. And lucid dreaming has been a big communication on this, you know, about lucid dreaming. And, you know, it's like you're having an inner world experience and your dreams come alive because your inner selves are creating that experience with you, you know, and your world that you're experiencing created by your whole mind and body vibing into an awareness within yourself, and being aware of that awareness, and then making things happen, come to life. And, you know, dream states can feel like a long time when it's only a few seconds. So there's a lot of interesting truths that have been scientifically studied and put to knowledge bases about those things. And I stumbled across a lot of this stuff on this path of healing and knowledge of self, and overcoming burdens that I was going through and have been going through. And one of the things that have helped me get through a lot of it is knowledge, you know, by being aware of these different things that happens based on cause and effect, and my own personal challenges of being injured at birth and going through different things and having, you know, perceptual awarenesses being a little bit off. And that affecting my relationships as I've gotten older, and even with, you know, immediate family members, not just my social life outside of that. You know, a lot of my life has been just masking who I've been, and a lot of it's been not being able to have my chakra systems opened up to be able to communicate. So it's felt like I've been stifled, and you can maybe hear it a little bit in my voice now. You know, I'm getting a little bit stronger in speaking, but a lot of my depth and voice has been almost like it's like a hose. I keep saying it's been like a hose pressed down. Like my meridians have been off because of my scar tissue buildup from not, you know, going through any type of aftermath care from my surgery at birth. And it's not necessarily been part of the mainstream dynamics in which the hospitals and care system has worked. You know, the energetic anatomy side of things hasn't been viewed or really implemented, and it's kind of being looked at now, but it's been a very interesting dynamic transition towards that if we're going to go towards this balanced space towards it. And I do have a strong feeling we are headed that way towards a balance with the mathematical science and the, you know, the holistic and natural care. And that goes back into Guild Wars 2. Sometimes people want to have the freedom to play their characters however they want, and they're so tired of working these framework positions that it's like being told to fit into certain molds without them really wanting to fit in that mold in order to accomplish things in the game can be a little bit of a challenge for people to realize, well, there is certain specific builds for you to use, and to become proficient at doing the rotations of that build is really how to progress in Guild Wars 2 without being frustrated with yourself and feeling like you're frustrating others, or feeling like others are being frustrated by you. So there is this common sense of sharing the road by doing the best you can within a given framework, and then being able to work as a formless warrior outside of that. And so, like, I kind of came into this game all backwards, and I've fumbled, and I'm telling y'all from, you know, my mistakes. It's really easy to get through the game and to be carried a lot. And, you know, I've had, you know, issues, so I don't, you know, it's not that bad if you're carried once in a while in the game, you know. But I've gotten better over the years, and I'm starting to kind of pick up on what I'm doing when it comes to, if I'm going to be using arc DPS, I'm going to, you know, use it, but I'm not going to put pressure on people and start to redefine what it means to lead, and to do it in a way that actually can create a sense of presence that lets, you know, everyone feel like they're involved and they're not, you know, being kicked out because of some elitist strategy. But at the same time, I like that sense of people feeling like they're building towards becoming an elitist for themselves, so that they can be better for themselves, and that influences others around them. But I've also been big about gaming being a part of our lives, and orchestrating ourselves based around having fun. So that's what really it comes down to. So you got to have a little bit of that logic, so that it can be an interplay between the you know, Captain Kirk and having fun with it. You know, as Siddhartha once said, too tight, string snaps; too loose, it doesn't play. Alright, y'all. Thank you for listening. I will hopefully hear from some of y'all during these live sessions. I really don't promote them. I should share it more often when I do go live. This is a real late night session, heading into the early morning here in central Illinois. Not central Illinois, central U.S. Yeah, near St. Louis, Illinois. There we go. And so, like, I'm looking to network with anyone really who's playing Guild Wars 2, the North American server. I'm looking to get into the World versus World more, as a heads up to anyone who has played Guild Wars 2 and is looking to get back into World versus World, or get back into Guild Wars 2. If you get back into World versus World, I think they're opening it up to where you can get a good bit of the Mystic Clovers. So if you're looking to make legendaries, and you know how challenging it's been to get the Mystic Clovers, and it's almost been to where you didn't want to deal with it, and you lost a lot of coin doing the, you know, the exchange of the 10, you know, mystic coins for Mystic Clovers. So this is like a way that you can get Mystic Clovers without having to go through all the hassle of getting them. And that can be a real challenge and really expensive, and I know frustrated a lot of people But now with like the legendary armor and getting your legendary weapons, the gameplay, you know, for end game players, being able to get your runes and your sigils, the idea is to be able to have multiple different builds and being able to switch up your gameplay and be able to do, you know, top tier kind of gameplay, damage and in your capabilities, knowing your different routines and strats to you know, become an awesome player and help others become awesome, and then, you know, you can blaze through some of these missions and be ready for the next expansion or be able to handle any other challenges. So if we're gonna be awesome at gaming, we might as well be awesome at life and bring it all together and amplify it. So too tight snaps, too loose don't play. All right, y'all. Night.